The klaxons wailed through the cadet barracks of the Joint Interstellar Academy, a rising shriek that meant one thing: poison gas drill. Cadets of a dozen species bolted upright from their bunks, scrambling for masks, oxygen filters, or the thick translucent suits designed to seal every inch of flesh. Panic spread faster than the alarm itself. Clicking mandibles, shrill whistles, and frantic shouts in different tongues filled the room. On the far side of the dormitory, Cadet Rinell of the Thryken clawed at the locker where his respirator was stored. His 4 hands trembled as he snapped the mask onto his snout. His compound eyes darted across the room until they froze on the one figure who wasn't moving. "Human!" he rasped, muffled behind the respirator. "Why are you not suiting up?" The human in question, Cadet Jason Holt, 19, from Earth, sat calmly on the edge of his bunk. He didn't reach for the emergency locker. He didn't even flinch at the klaxons. Instead, he leaned down, unzipped his duffel, and pulled something out, a small bag of marshmallows. Jason held them up with a grin. "Question is, anybody got sticks?" The room went dead quiet for half a heartbeat, then erupted again. A Drelon cadet hissed, his segmented body rattling as he dragged an air tank onto his back. "Are you brain-burned, human? This is a toxic agent simulation. Do you wish to suffocate?" Jason shrugged. "Simulated, yeah? Meaning not actually toxic. Meaning..." He tore open the bag and popped one fluffy cube into his mouth. "Perfect time for s'mores if someone sparks up a fire generator." The absurdity hit the room like a shockwave. Cadets who had been seconds away from panic froze, staring at him. Some blinked, others tilted their heads. A few began to wonder if maybe they had misunderstood the sirens. Rinell slammed 2 hands against the wall panel to test the seal. "This is madness. If this had been real gas, your lungs would already be liquefied." Jason chewed slowly, then smirked. "Then I guess it's a good thing it's not real, huh?" The siren cut off suddenly, replaced by the smooth, unfeeling voice of the Academy AI. "Cadet Barracks response time recorded. Drill in progress. Proceed to sealed shelter chamber in formation." The aliens shuffled, still rattled. Jason, however, stood up leisurely, stretching as though this were nothing more than morning roll call. As the cadets filed into the shelter chamber, a long, airtight corridor with simulated fog venting from the ceiling, Jason strolled at the rear, bag of marshmallows dangling from one hand. The fog curled around them in thick, pale clouds. Some cadets whimpered. Others clutched their masks tighter. Jason just sniffed. "Smells like burnt sugar. Anyone else hungry?" The officer supervising the drill, Commander Shorvac of the XYN Collective, was waiting at the end of the corridor. His wide, luminous eyes swept across the trainees as they filed past. When his gaze landed on Jason, he stiffened. "Holt," Shorvac said, his voice echoing with irritation. "Why are you not sealed? Where is your respirator?" Jason popped another marshmallow into his mouth before answering. "Left it in the locker. Didn't seem necessary." The alien commander's mandibles flared wide. "Not necessary? This drill exists to condition you for rapid response under catastrophic conditions. You were expected to treat the simulation as lethal." Jason tilted his head. "With respect, sir, I don't see the point of pretending I can't breathe when I can. Seems like wasted energy." The room went still. Cadets shifted nervously in their suits, terrified of what the commander might say. But Shorvac didn't shout. Instead, he stepped closer, studying the human. "And yet, you show no fear. Not even mild anxiety. Curious. Every other cadet showed stress indicators. Elevated respiration, tremors, erratic speech." Jason gave him a lopsided grin. "We've got a saying back home, if it ain't real fire, don't waste your bucket of water. This? Just smoke and noise." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You disregard protocol." "Maybe," Jason admitted. "But panic kills faster than gas. Didn't look like anyone here was thinking straight. Guess someone had to lighten the mood." That last line landed. Several cadets glanced at each other. They remembered how, for a split second, Jason's ridiculous talk about marshmallows had cut through their fear. Shorvak's mandibles clicked in thought. He finally straightened. Return to barracks. Drill complete. Debrief will commence in 1 hour. The cadets shuffled out, muttering among themselves. Jason lingered, tossing the bag of marshmallows in one hand. Sir? He asked. Next time you run this drill, maybe throw in a fire pit hologram. Realistic morale booster. Shorvak stared at him as if trying to decide whether to reprimand him or promote him. Finally, he rasped. Dismissed. Back in the barracks, the atmosphere had shifted. No one rushed to strip off their suits. Instead, the aliens gathered in small knots, whispering about the humans' calmness. Rennell finally approached Jason directly. Explain yourself, human, he demanded. Why did you mock the exercise? Do humans not respect danger? Jason leaned back against his bunk. We respect it. But we also learned a long time ago that fear doesn't help you think. You train for real disasters, sure, but you don't let drills own you. Otherwise, the day it really happens, you'll choke before the gas does. The Thrycan's mandibles clicked uncertainly. You are not wrong. Yet your methods are strange. Jason smiled faintly. Strange tends to work for us. Before the conversation could go further, the intercom chimed again. Cadets, prepare for debriefing in Hall C. Jason shoved the marshmallows back into his duffel, then looked at the room full of eyes watching him. Come on. Let's go find out how much trouble I'm in. A ripple of uneasy laughter spread among the aliens. For the first time since the drill started, the fear was gone. The debriefing hall was a cavern of steel and glass, shaped like an amphitheater so every cadet could see the central platform. Rows upon rows of beings from across the galaxy sat stiffly, their respirators still hanging awkwardly from belts or backpacks. The atmosphere was thick, not with poison gas, but with tension. Commander Shorvak stood on the central platform, mandibles flexing in irritation as he called up holographic displays of the drill. Each cadet's performance data flickered above their heads: reaction times, stress markers, errors. Response time, Shorvak announced, voice sharp, was abysmal. His luminous eyes swept the crowd. 42% of you fumbled initial activation. 78% failed to secure proper seals. 3 cadets nearly tore their masks in panic. The hologram shifted to display physiological readings: heart rates spiking, adrenaline flooding, chaotic oxygen intake. The aliens shifted in embarrassment, antennae drooping and mandibles clicking nervously. Shorvak let the silence stretch before speaking again. And then, he hissed, there was this. A replay appeared above the platform. Jason Holt, lounging on his bunk, pulling out the marshmallows. His calmness contrasted starkly with the chaos around him. The recording even caught his line, question is, anybody got sticks? The room erupted in murmurs. Some cadets looked horrified. Others suppressed reluctant chuckles. Jason just slouched in his seat, pretending to study his nails. Shorvak's mandibles twitched. Cadet Holt. Stand. Jason rose, hands in his pockets. Sir? The commander's gaze bored into him. Explain your conduct. You flagrantly disregarded the simulation parameters. You ignored protocol. And yet, he gestured to the holographic stress charts. Your biometric readings remained stable. No panic. No elevated respiration. Barely an adrenaline spike. Jason shrugged. Guess I just didn't see the point in pretending smoke was death. My lungs figured it out faster than most. Gasps rippled through the chamber. One of the Drelon cadets hissed in outrage. You insult us! You mock the discipline required to survive! Jason turned his head lazily. Or maybe I'm showing you that discipline isn't the same as fear. The words hung in the air. Shorvak raised a claw, silencing the mutters. His eyes narrowed, studying Jason as though he were some dangerous specimen. Tell me, human cadet, what, in your species' philosophy, is the purpose of such drills? Jason glanced around at the crowd of aliens staring at him. Then he spoke, voice steady. Drills are supposed to make you ready, not scared. On Earth, we run fire drills. Earthquakes. Tornado sirens. Even school kids get dragged out of class for it. First thing you learn? If you treat it like the end of the world every time, you burn out. People freeze. Panic spreads. So we make it lighter. Someone cracks a joke. Somebody smuggles snacks. It keeps everyone breathing. He tapped his chest. If the real thing ever hits, that calm is what saves you, not how fast you can scream into a mask. Silence again. This time heavier. Many cadets exchanged uncertain glances. They couldn't deny the logic, even if it clashed with everything they'd been taught. Shorvac slowly folded his arms. Interesting. You suggest morale, humor, and calmness are tactical tools. Jason smirked. Where I come from, they're survival gear. The commander's mandibles clicked softly, a sound of deep thought. Finally, he gestured to the crowd. Cadets. Input. One by one voices rose. Rinell, still shaken but thoughtful, stood. The human is strange. Yet his composure lessened my fear for a moment. I cannot deny it. A scaled cadet from the Thravesh clan shook his head. But he endangered himself. What if the gas had been real? Jason answered before Shorvac could. If it had been real, I'd have known the difference. Trust me, my nose works. Scattered chuckles broke out. Shorvac raised a claw again. Enough. You will all record reflections on this exercise. Consider both your failures and the human cadets' deviation. His gaze locked on Jason. You, Holt, will remain after dismissal. The crowd groaned as the session ended. Cadets filed out, still whispering about the human. Some admired him. Others thought he was insane. But no one could ignore him anymore. When the hall was empty, Jason stood alone with Shorvac. You're not going to expel me, are you? Jason asked, tossing the half-empty marshmallow bag between his hands. The commander's mandibles twitched again. Expel? No. The Academy does not discard anomalies. It studies them. Jason raised an eyebrow. I'm an anomaly now. Shorvac stepped closer, looming. You are a human. One of the first to enter this academy. Your behavior reflects not only on you, but on your species. Jason gave a small, crooked grin. Then I guess Earth's reputation just got a little weirder. Shorvac's eyes narrowed further. Weirder, yes. But perhaps also more dangerous. You defied fear. You disrupted panic. That makes you unpredictable. And in war, unpredictability kills. Jason's smile faded slightly. You sound like you don't know whether that's a compliment or a threat. The commander leaned down. Neither. It is an observation. I intend to test you further. Jason sighed, stuffing the marshmallows back into his pocket. Figures. Later that night, the barracks buzzed with speculation. Cadets crowded around Jason, pelting him with questions. Do humans really treat disasters like games? Why would you laugh at death? Are you incapable of fear? Jason answered between bites of marshmallows. We feel fear, sure. We just don't feed it. Think of it like poison gas itself. If you let it spread in your head, it fills every corner. Joke about it, roast a marshmallow, suddenly you've got a little filter. Makes it breathable. Some cadets looked baffled. Others nodded slowly. For the first time, they weren't just dismissing the human, they were listening. Rinell finally muttered. Perhaps there is wisdom in madness. Jason chuckled. You'd be surprised how often that works out for us. That night, as the lights dimmed and the barracks quieted, Jason lay back in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. He could feel the shift in the air. The other cadets weren't just curious anymore, they were watching him differently. And he knew one thing for sure, Shorvac wasn't done testing him. The poison gas drill had just been the beginning. The next test came without warning. Jason was halfway through breakfast, alien porridge that tasted like lukewarm glue, when the entire mess hall shuddered violently. A deep alarm pulsed through the walls, not the shrill klaxon of a drill but a low, bone-deep rumble that silenced every conversation instantly. The holographic displays along the ceiling flared to life, showing streaks of light in space, simulated incoming missiles. "Combat readiness drill initiated," the Academy AI announced. "Hostile strike imminent. Proceed to designated defensive positions." Chaos erupted. Trays clattered, chairs screeched, cadets shouted in at least 8 different languages. Some bolted for the exits, others froze in confusion, and a few simply collapsed, overwhelmed by the sudden shift. Jason calmly stood, scooped another spoonful of porridge into his mouth, and muttered, "Guess this stuff'll have to wait." Rennell nearly tripped as he rushed past. "Halt! Why do you not move? We are under attack." Jason swallowed. Simulation. Different flavor of smoke and mirrors. He grabbed a roll off his tray and jogged toward the exit. "Come on, big guy, I'll walk with you." The corridors became a crush of bodies. Sirens wailed overhead, and the Academy AI blared tactical warnings: shield breaches, hull depressurization, incoming boarding craft. The cadets were funneled into the training deck, where the simulation became worse. Holographic explosions bloomed, walls trembled, and vents pumped acrid smoke. Jason saw cadets struggling to stay upright, slipping on the trembling floor, their training unraveling. Fear had taken over. Then the walls burst open. Figures stormed through, holographic enemy soldiers, tall, insected marauders with spiked limbs and glowing weapons. The projection was so detailed it sent many cadets into screaming fits. Some fired their training rifles wildly, bolts scattering off the shielded holograms. Others simply curled into balls, paralyzed. Jason didn't reach for his weapon. He scanned the room once, then cupped his hands around his mouth. "Hey!" he shouted over the chaos. "Anyone bring the marshmallows?" Heads whipped toward him in disbelief. Even the simulated soldiers seemed to pause for a split second as the AI processed the disruption. Jason grinned. "Relax. They're fake bugs with glow sticks. You don't need to panic, you just need to aim straight. Cover the doors, keep your squads tight, and stop screaming like you're already dead." His voice cut through the frenzy. The nearest squad of cadets blinked, hesitated, then rallied. A Thravesh cadet straightened, her scales gleaming in the flickering light. "He is right. They are only phantoms. Hold formation." The squad reformed, firing in controlled bursts. Their accuracy doubled instantly. Jason grabbed 2 panicked Drelon by their collars and shoved them toward a barricade. "Point your rifles that way. If you're going to sweat, might as well sweat behind cover." The insected projections surged forward again, but this time, the cadets weren't just scattering. They were fighting, using their training instead of their fear. Jason kept moving through the chaos, barking encouragement, tossing out half-serious jokes, anything to keep them thinking instead of panicking. A holographic explosion rocked the deck, sending a squad sprawling. Jason sprinted through smoke, dragged one cadet to his feet, and slapped his training rifle back into his hands. "Congratulations, you're still alive," Jason said. "Now pay it forward, cover your friends." The cadet's wide alien eyes locked on Jason, then steadied. He took a knee and fired, his aim no longer wild. The tide turned. The holographic enemies faltered as the cadets finally moved like soldiers instead of prey. Within minutes, the last bug soldier flickered and dissolved into light. The alarms cut off. Silence slammed down over the deck, broken only by cadets panting through their respirators. Then the overhead lights snapped bright, and Commander Shorvac descended onto the platform overlooking the training deck. His gaze swept across the exhausted cadets before locking onto Jason. "Human halt," he said, voice carrying. "Front and center." Jason dusted soot from his uniform and walked forward casually, as though he hadn't just saved a dozen cadets from a breakdown. "Yeah, Commander?" Shorvac's mandibles clicked. "Explain what just occurred." Jason looked around at the cadets staring at him. Many still trembled, but now their eyes carried something else: relief, even respect. "Simple," Jason said. "You tried to scare them into discipline. Didn't work. Fear scrambles brains. I just reminded them they weren't actually dying, so their brains came back online. A low murmur spread through the crowd. Shorvac tilted his head. You claim humor steadied them. Jason nodded. Humor, calm, a little perspective. Works every time. The commander's luminous eyes narrowed, but instead of chastising him, he turned to address the whole assembly. Cadets. Observe. The human is reckless, defiant, and insubordinate. Yet he did what none of you could. He restored order using methods alien to us. Consider what this means. The cadets whispered, glancing at Jason as though seeing him for the first time. Shorvac snapped his claws for silence. Dismissed. Except you, Holt. When the others had gone, Jason stood with arms crossed while Shorvac studied him like a puzzle. You disrupt, the commander said slowly. And yet, the disruption yields results. Jason gave a small grin. Starting to sound like you almost approve. Shorvac's mandibles twitched. Approval is irrelevant. What matters is data. Twice now, in the face of crisis, you refused fear and turned it into control. I am forced to conclude this is not chance. This is human nature. Jason leaned back. Pretty much, yeah? We've had a long history of staring down things that should have killed us. Makes you creative. Shorvac's eyes glowed faintly. Then I will escalate. Next drill will not be simulation only. We will introduce real danger. Jason frowned. Define real. You will see, Shorvac said, turning away. Prepare yourself. Tomorrow we'll test the limits of your philosophy. Jason muttered under his breath. Figures. He pulled the last marshmallow from his pocket and popped it into his mouth. Guess I'll need a bigger bag. The next morning, Jason was woken not by alarms but by the sound of boots in the barracks. Cadet Holt. Commander Shorvac's voice cut through the dim. On your feet. You will accompany me. Jason rubbed sleep from his eyes, muttering. Not even breakfast first, huh? He sat up, shoved his feet into boots, and followed. The other cadets stirred, whispering nervously as they watched him leave. Rennell's compound eyes tracked Jason with a flicker of worry. Do not die, human, he murmured. Jason shot him a lopsided grin. I'll try not to. Shorvac led him through a series of security doors until they entered a stark chamber unlike any training deck Jason had seen before. The walls were lined with heavy containment panels, and the air carried a faint chemical tang that burned the nose. In the center of the room sat a transparent dome. Inside swirled a greenish haze, thick and unsettling, like a living storm trapped in glass. Warning glyphs scrolled across every surface. Jason slowed, eyebrows raising. That doesn't look like holograms. Shorvac turned to him, eyes gleaming. It is not. This is a controlled sample of Chlorin-7, a toxin harvested from the world of XYR. Inhalation without filtration results in asphyxiation within 90 seconds. Jason blinked. So you dragged me out of bed to die? Not die, Shorvac corrected. Be tested. You claim fearlessness. You claim calmness sustains survival. Very well. Enter the dome without a respirator. Jason barked a laugh. You're joking. Shorvac's mandibles spread. I do not joke. Jason studied the dome again, the sickly swirl of gas inside. For once, even he hesitated. This wasn't smoke machines and sirens. This was the real thing. You seriously want me to just walk in there and breathe poison? Precisely, Shorvac said. The chamber is monitored. You will be withdrawn at the first sign of collapse. But you will face death. And we will see if your human methods hold. Jason exhaled slowly. You've got a twisted idea of teaching. Shorvac tilted his head. Survival is not a gentle art. Jason looked back at the dome, then at the commander. Fine. But I want one thing. Shorvac's eyes narrowed. Name it. Jason pulled a lighter from his pocket, the kind issued for field kits, and held it up with a grin. If I'm going into a gas chamber, I'm roasting a marshmallow first. Call it a morale experiment. For a long moment, Shorvac simply stared. Finally, he gestured. As you wish. Inside the dome, the gas curled thick and alien, tinged with a faint, acrid sweetness. Jason sat cross-legged on the floor, lighter in one hand, marshmallow skewered on a bent piece of wire in the other. He flicked the flame, holding it under the marshmallow. The sweet smell of caramelizing sugar drifted through the haze. Every breath burned. The gas clawed at his throat, thick and suffocating. His lungs screamed for oxygen. Sweat beaded instantly on his skin. But Jason forced himself to grin, forced his hands steady as the marshmallow browned. Through the distortion of the glass, he could see Shorvac and a cluster of monitoring officers staring in disbelief. Their data displays spiked, oxygen deprivation, accelerated heartbeat, but still no panic reflex. Jason coughed hard, then lifted the marshmallow like a toast. Still, better than the porridge, he rasped. The officers outside murmured in shock. One hissed, "He should be unconscious already." Jason shoved the marshmallow into his mouth. It tasted like smoke and sugar, barely chewed before his chest convulsed. His vision blurred, stars dancing at the edges. At last, alarms blared. Mechanical arms yanked him out of the dome, slamming him onto the sterile floor outside. Fresh oxygen flooded his lungs like fire. Jason coughed violently, rolling to his side, then lay there gasping, tears streaming from his eyes. Shorvac loomed above him. "Foolish human! You nearly killed yourself." Jason wheezed, but forced a grin between coughs. "Worth it, marshmallow was perfect." The room was silent except for his ragged breathing. Then, unexpectedly, one of the officers let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Another joined. Soon the chamber filled with a ripple of alien voices, astonishment mixed with something dangerously close to admiration. Jason sat up slowly, still pale, still trembling. But his eyes were steady. "You wanted proof? There it is. Fear doesn't win. Stubbornness does." Shorvac stared at him for a long moment, mandibles tight. "You are reckless beyond measure. Yet, you endured longer than any projection predicted. Longer than any of us could." Jason spat to the side, wiped his mouth, and muttered, "Guess humans are just built different." The commander's gaze hardened, but there was no denial in it. Perhaps too different. And perhaps, too dangerous. Jason leaned back against the wall, exhausted but smiling faintly. "Now you're getting it." When Jason was escorted back to the barracks later, word had already spread. The cadets swarmed him, questions flying. "You breathed poison? You lived? Are you insane?" Jason dropped onto his bunk, still coughing occasionally. "Little bit insane, yeah? But hey, I roasted marshmallows in a death cloud. Top that." The room erupted in noise. Some cadets laughed nervously, others looked at him with outright awe. Rinell crouched beside him, mandibles clicking softly. "Why risk so much? Why not refuse?" Jason glanced around at the crowd watching him. His voice, hoarse but steady, carried through the barracks. "Because if I'd back down, you'd all think fear was stronger than will. And if there's one lesson humans don't forget, it's this: we'd rather choke standing up than live on our knees." The silence that followed was heavy. Not fearful, reverent. For the first time, Jason realized the cadets weren't just amused by him anymore. They were starting to believe in him. And Shorvac. Jason knew the commander had seen it too. The tests weren't over. They were only escalating.